Today's episode of Off the Timeline is titled, What If Tennessee Left the SEC in 1996? In 1996, the SEC was not weak, it was not unstable, it was not falling apart. It was strong, profitable, and innovative. But it was also political, and in this alternate history, one internal revenue vote pushes Tennessee to explore something unthinkable, leaving the SEC for the Big 12. Not because the SEC was inferior, not because Tennessee disliked its rivals, but because one miscalculation in 1996 leads to the most fascinating realignment drama college football had in an alternate universe. What if Tennessee actually left? And what if that one move reshaped Missouri, Baylor, the BCS era, and the timing of SEC dominance? Let's go back to 1996. And let's set the table for a conference at its peak. By the mid 90s, the SEC championship game was in full force. Florida was ascending under Steve Spurrier. Alabama still carried some historical gravity, and Tennessee was nationally relevant and recruiting at a high level. The SEC was not desperate, it was confident, and confidence can create blind spots. Inside league meetings, a debate begins. Should revenue distribution reflect TV draw? Florida's ratings were increasing. Tennessee's leadership quietly resented even the suggestion of unequal revenue structures. And here's where this alternate history pivots. The Big 12, newly formed, sees opportunity. Texas, Nebraska, a national title path. They don't recruit Tennessee on geography. They recruit them on power, equal footing, founding super conference status, no tiered revenue future. And that sets the table for the leverage play. Now you may be thinking to yourself that Tennessee would never leave the SEC. That tradition runs too deep, and in real life, you'd probably be right. But this is an alternate history scenario and the timing matters. In 1996, the BCS is not launched yet, conference power is not cemented, and TV revenue models are still fluid. Tennessee doesn't publicly declare departure, they leverage, they float interest, and they force a vote. SEC leadership, confident Florida and Alabama anchor the brand, believes Tennessee is bluffing. Behind the scenes, Missouri quietly signals interest in SEC membership. Now the league has a safety valve. That changes the calculation. You may be thinking to yourself that the SEC would never risk losing Tennessee, but leadership misreads the leverage. They assume tradition outweighs posturing. Tennessee calls the bluff. They accept Big 12 membership. And in this alternate timeline, it actually happens. And that sets the table for the fallout. The immediate effects are seismic. The 1998 national title picture changes dramatically. Without Tennessee in the SEC, that championship path changes. SEC prestige doesn't collapse, but it delays inevitability. Missouri joins the SEC earlier than 2012. The Big 12 expands, and Baylor becomes structurally isolated inside an even larger conference hierarchy. Now, you may be thinking to yourself that Baylor would never be politically vulnerable, and in real life, Texas politics protect them. But in this alternate history, expansion protects Baylor short term, while competitive imbalance erodes them long term. No immediate expulsion, just slow marginalization. The real drama? The BCS launches with a different perception of power. Instead of SEC momentum in 1998, the Big 12 owns the narrative. Recruiting adjusts, as does TV perception. The SEC still rises, but slower, and that timing ripple changes 2006 national perception, early 2000s recruiting pipelines, the speed of SEC dominance, not whether it happens, but when. And that set the table for the SEC reality check. And let's address this directly. This is not a story about the SEC being weak. It's a story about leadership miscalculation in one vote. You may be thinking to yourself that Alabama, Georgia, and Auburn would never allow this. In this alternate history, the internal vote fracture is the key. One bloc underestimates Tennessee's leverage. Another believes Missouri is a viable replacement. Ego outweighs caution. Now that's conference politics, not a fantasy collapse. And that sets the table for the long-term ripple. By the early 2000s in this alternate history, the Big 12 is perceived as the first modern super conference. The SEC still thrives but doesn't rise as fast. Tennessee develops new rivalries with Nebraska and Texas. Missouri's SEC integration accelerates division reshaping. Baylor fights uphill in an even larger Big 12. And the biggest twist? When the CFP era eventually arrives, the foundation story of dominance is different. Same powers, different origin myth. That's the drama. Now, history is not shaped by wins and losses, it's shaped by votes, timing, and leverage. This alternate history does not erase the SEC, it explores how fragile power structures can be before they solidify, and how one decision in 1996 could have changed the entire tempo of modern college football. And if you enjoyed this alternate history scenario, hit like. It tells the algorithm you want more realignment deep dives like this. Drop a comment. Would Tennessee have thrived in the Big 12, or would have the SEC recovered even faster? And subscribe if you love these what if college football timelines. Check check out the next alternate history episodes right here on the end screen, because sometimes the most fascinating seasons are the ones that almost happened.